Okay, let me explain what I'm thinking. I'll preface my remarks by stating flatly that I've known nominal Roman Catholics who seem to me, for what that's worth, to be true children of Yahshua. I can't bring myself to dismiss all Catholics out of hand, as so many have done, as mere puppets of popery. On the other hand, it is only insofar as they ignore or deny some of the teachings of their church that they are able to come to a knowledge of the truth. And don't look so smug. The same holds true for most Protestant denominations these days. At one time or another, we have all assumed we were doing God's will, when in fact we were merely following our own man-made traditions. We need to repent, stop being willingly ignorant, and start paying attention to what Yahweh has communicated to us in His Word. Don't assume that just because you and your people have always done it that way, it's what Yahweh wants. That being said, the Roman connection with the harlot of Babylon is too blatant to ignore. I have to conclude that Catholicism has something, though not everything, to do with it. At first glance, it seems that the prophecy about reigning over the kings of the earth is out of date. There was a time when the Roman Catholic Church did indeed extend its political authority over much of the world, or at least the Western world, and wielded virtually uncontested power within Europe. But those days are thankfully gone. Today the Church wields influence, not power. The Pope is respected, even honored, among the nations. He is not necessarily obeyed. Popes no longer threaten excommunication at the drop of a hat to achieve their personal agendas. That ploy doesn't work anymore. For although captains and kings may still long for heaven, they no longer believe in hell. If we honestly look at the world around us, we observe that manifestations of false doctrine, aka Babylon, are often regional. Europe, especially the Europe that fell within the old Roman Empire, has been joined at the hip with the Roman Catholic Church since the days of Constantine. Because of their conquest by Spain and Portugal, Latin America largely shares Europe's Roman Catholic leanings, albeit with some indigenous superstitions blended in. North America is a hodgepodge of religious heritage, most heavily influenced today by Protestantism, Catholicism, and secular humanism. And don't kid yourself, secular humanism, atheism if you will, is a faith in every sense of the word. The Middle East is dominated by Islam, as Asia is by Hinduism and its many children. Communism, in its role as a religion, and its cousin secular humanism are most influential in Russia and China. And Africa is a strange, self-destructive mixture of Islam, Christianity, and animism. Obviously, I'm using an extremely broad brush here, missing spots and slopping outside the lines. My point is simply that Roman Catholicism is one of the primary manifestations of Babylon within Antichrist's own kingdom. In point of fact, it's not the only one. Islam is another, and as we have seen, the entire eastern half of the old Roman Empire, formerly known as Byzantium, is now enslaved under this particular curse. Outside of the Neo-Roman Empire, Babylon takes other forms, though she will ultimately meet the same fate. So, at the very least, when
the 10 horns which you saw on the beast hate the harlot, make her desolate and naked, eat her flesh, and burn her with fire,
we are seeing what the 10 governments who give their power to the Antichrist will do to the Vatican, who rode Europe like a beast of burden for 1,500 years, and to Islam, which swallowed Byzantium whole. This is a metaphor, a picture, a preview of the judgment that will fall upon spiritual Babylon as a worldwide entity. It is a prophecy that will be fulfilled in a literal sense of all the world's religions, every last one of them. As we shall see, the Antichrist will ultimately absorb and usurp all faiths into the worship of himself, and the dragon who empowers him, Satan. It's the only thing Satan really wants. As much as Roman Catholicism has come to embody the spirit of Babylon in the Western world, Islam is actually far closer to Satan's ideal religion. Our scriptures are full of subtle warnings against it if only we knew what to look for. Islam is the truest modern permutation of the Baal worship that was so roundly denounced throughout the Old Covenant scriptures. The reason we in the West don't recognize this is our abysmal lack of knowledge, our willful ignorance of its roots and teaching. Ancient Israel was warned not to tolerate the practice of Baal worship in any of its forms. Their compromise brought them to ruin. Today, our politically correct tolerance of this poisonous doctrine will bring us down just as surely, for Islam is the child of Baal. You can't keep a dragon for a pet. When it grows big enough, it will devour you. But there is more to the whore of Babylon than satanic religions. She has not only spiritual aspects, but also a political and financial side. It is therefore a dangerous mistake to identify her exclusively with one thing or another. She is rather many things, but with one thing in common, a burning hatred for Yahweh, His people, and His precepts. The harlot is described in Revelation 18:10 as that great city. I think we might come close to the heart of the matter if we mentally replace the word city with system, a concept for which there was no direct equivalent in the Greek of John's day. If a system, ubiquitous, interlocking, independent, and prepared to defend itself, and driven by self-interest, was what Yahweh meant to convey, He couldn't have picked a better word than polis, translated city. I'm going to have to save the ultimate fate of Babylon for a later discussion, for her ultimate destruction apparently happens quite suddenly and a bit later in the tribulation that we are discussing here. Suffice it to say that it will be Yahweh, not the Antichrist, who will finally pour out His wrath on Greater Babylon in all its guises. If you can't stand the suspense, go read Revelation 18. I'll catch up. When you look at it this way, it's shockingly obvious that the whole world is already permeated with the poison of Babylon, the crime of systematically accepting and advancing in the name of Yahweh that which is not of Him. The third commandment has been shattered beyond recognition, thanks in part to our woefully inadequate English translations. We dare not dismiss spiritual Babylon as a future phenomenon, or worse, a myth. While the ecclesia will be gone from the earth before God finally delivers His wrath upon the harlot, we would still do well to heed the warning of Jeremiah.
Flee from the midst of Babylon, and every one save his life. Do not be cut off in her iniquity, for this is the time of Yahweh's vengeance. He shall recompense her. Babylon was a golden cup in Yahweh's hand, that made all the earth drunk. Nations drank her wine. Therefore the nations are deranged. Jeremiah 51:6 and 7.
The harlot sitting on
peoples, multitudes, nations, and tongues
speaks of something beyond religion, a pervasive worldwide system united in the cause of controlling all mankind through its influence
over the kings of the earth.
I can see you rolling your eyes, mumbling, that doesn't exist except in the minds of paranoid conspiracy theorists. I don't know, maybe it does exist, but we've lived so close to it for so long, we can't see it. It's hard to observe the blindfold that covers your own eyes. Frankly, what I'm about to share with you is so weird I wouldn't have given it a second glance if not for the fact that it fits biblical prophecy so well. Having already observed that religions, like the Roman Catholic Church or Islam, are but two of many manifestations of the whore of Babylon, I went looking for other candidates who might fit her description. Since the story of Babylon's fall, which we'll cover in due time, makes it clear that false religion is only part of the puzzle, I was on the lookout for a secular or quasi-secular organization or organizations that wield enormous inordinate control over commerce and money, who are dedicated to bringing about one world government and or religion, or that generally share Satan's pride, greed, or modus operandi. It would be a bonus if they had some connection with Roman Catholicism and Islam, and I found one, an octopus-like entity that fit all the criteria so well it's scary. They're so nefarious it's hard to believe they even exist, yet their existence and activities are no particular secret. There are scores of websites and books that openly discuss and explain their program. Still, it's hard to talk about them without sounding hysterical and paranoid, even to myself. That being said, myths are seldom baseless. Legends get started somewhere. This one starts in Bavaria. Adam Weishaupt was a Catholic priest, a Jesuit-trained professor of canon law at Ingolstadt University. In 1770, he defected from the church and, financed by several powerful international bankers, began an admittedly satanic organization called the Illuminati. The name, according to Weishaupt's writings, is derived from Lucifer and means holders of the light. The ultimate goal? World domination under Luciferian ideology. Weishaupt completed his business plan on May 1st, 1776. Never one to shrink from a challenge, his stated objective was the destruction of all existing governments and religions, replacing them with one all-powerful government run by and for the elite ruling class under the banner of Lucifer. This would be accomplished, the plan said, by dividing the masses into opposing camps on whatever social, political, and economic issues presented themselves, and arming each side with weapons or rhetoric, the tools of conflict appropriate for each situation. So much for blessed are the peacemakers. Pitting one side against the other would leave the Illuminati, the elite of society, with more power and influence after each successive conflict. This would not happen overnight, of course. Weishaupt realized that it would take many generations to achieve his goal. Building the Illuminati and positioning it for increasing influence would be achieved through a four-pronged plan of attack. First, in order to gain control over men already in high places within government or commerce, they would be compromised, either bribed with power, sex, or money, blackmailed with scandals Illuminati operatives had engineered, or threatened with financial ruin or physical harm. They would find the soft spots of influential men and simply squeeze. If they couldn't turn the man, they would settle for taking his assets and ruining him professionally. If you want to know how it works in practice, check out my first book, co-authored with Craig Wynn, called In the Company of Good and Evil, published by Cricket Song Books in 2001. It tells the true story of how the $3 billion publicly traded company Wynn had built, with a little help from yours truly, was taken over through the maneuverings of a Washington-based religious power broker organization called the International Fellowship, a name we disguised in the book. Yahweh protected Wynn, but his company, and mine by the way, was stolen and sucked dry. Second, bright and gifted students from upper-class families were to be singled out for special training, with such means as the Rhodes Scholarship, preparing them for a future role in the Illuminati. They were to be encouraged in their internationalist leanings and taught that talented and high-born people, like them, had a right and a destiny to rule over the unwashed masses. Third, the young people thus recruited would be placed behind the scenes in governments and businesses as experts and specialists. They were to be the power behind the throne, that is, until they could seize the throne for themselves. And fourth, Weishaupt knew that absolute control of the press, the media, was essential for indoctrinating and distracting the masses.